On the corner of Cesar Chavez and Soto, before the sun fully clears the rooftops, Lupita Gutierrez is already arranging fruit. She does it the same way every morning. Mangoes first, then tamarind, then the sliced watermelon fanned out on the tray like something ceremonial. Her handwritten price signs go up next, then the small radio that plays just loud enough to be company without being noise. By the time the neighborhood wakes up around her, she is ready. She is always ready. This is how the Gutierrez family operates. You show up, you do the work, and you are present for the people who need you. It is not a philosophy they have articulated. It is simply what they do. Reynaldo, her husband, is already at the shop by the time she opens the stand. He is a car mechanic by trade, but what he is by nature is something closer to an artist. A man who speaks in torque and compression ratios, who can hear a misaligned valve the way a musician hears a wrong note, and who spends his evenings and weekends in the driveway of their East LA home-building vintage Impala lowriders from the frame up. Not restoring them, building them, coaxing hydraulic systems into those long, low bodies so the cars can rise and bow and bounce with a choreographic swagger that stops people on the street. Every weekend, those cars are shown. Every Sunday afternoon, the family cruises Whittier Boulevard, joining the slow chrome procession that has been a ritual of this neighborhood for generations, ending at Rick's Drive In and Out, where Reynaldo parks with the quiet satisfaction of a man who has made something beautiful and knows it. Reynaldo grew up under those cars, literally flat on his back on the cool concrete beside his father, handing tools up before he knew their names, watching and filing and learning the language of machines the way other kids learn to read. By 14, he was building his own lowrider bicycles, intricate and ornate, pinstriped with a steadiness of hand that surprised people who didn't know him. By 16, he was assembling mini-bikes from discarded lawnmower engines, because in Reynaldo's estimation, an engine sitting idle was a small personal offense. He understood how things were put together. He understood how, with patience and the right pressure, broken things could be made to run. He was also, in the hours when he wasn't in the driveway or at the workbench, a Garfield High School athlete of genuine distinction, football in the fall, baseball in the spring, and student government year-round. He had graduated 2 months ago, clean and clear with no gang affiliations. He had none of the entanglements that circulate through that part of the city like weather and catch people who are only half paying attention. In a neighborhood where the easiest path and the right path diverge early and permanently, Reynaldo had always known which one he was on. His little brother Mateo, 8 years old and built like a question mark, had spent those years watching Reynaldo the way scientists watch phenomena they cannot fully explain, with total absorption, with notebooks full of mental observations, with a devotion that had no bottom. Reynaldo's football jersey was Mateo's pajama shirt. Reynaldo's batting statistics were Mateo's bedtime reading. When Reynaldo coached Mateo's Little League team, the Twins, Reynaldo showed up as assistant coach because of course he did, arriving still in his baseball cleats sometimes, catching Mateo's eye from the first baseline and giving him the small nod that meant you've got this and meaning it completely. His sister Sophia, 17, and Mia, 15, understood that their brother was the kind of person a family builds itself around without anyone deciding to. It just happens, the way certain people become the center of gravity in a room without asking for the job. The mini-bike race was Reynaldo's idea, or rather it became his idea once Vince Delgado made it impossible to be anyone else's. Vince was the particular kind of bully that every school produces, not the largest, not the loudest, but the most relentlessly strategic, the one who understood that status was a resource and spent his days extracting it from other people. He had been making noise about Reynaldo's bikes for months, loud, public, performative skepticism delivered in front of whoever happened to be present. A bike built from lawnmower parts. Right. Let me know how that goes. Reynaldo had ignored it with the patience of someone who knows what he has built, until the afternoon Vince said it in front of Mateo at the park, and Mateo's face did something that settled the matter. The race was arranged for a Saturday morning on the long, flat stretch behind the industrial units off Soto. a quarter-mile of smooth asphalt that the neighborhood kids had been using for exactly this kind of thing for years. Word spread the way word spreads among teenagers, completely and immediately. By Saturday, there were 30 kids lined up along the edges, some on bikes, some on foot. Mateo in the front row with his arms crossed and his brother's number 22 football jersey hanging to his knees. Reynaldo's bike was beautiful. That was the first thing people said later, everyone who was there. The engine was a reclaimed 4-horsepower Briggs & Stratton that he had rebuilt from seized, cleaned, calibrated, and tuned until it ran with a smoothness that a machine that age had no business achieving. The frame was welded by hand. The whole thing looked intentional and purposeful, like something designed rather than assembled. He had not worn a helmet. None of them did, which was the particular stupidity of being 17 with an operational vehicle and no adult supervision. He had come from the beach that morning and was still wearing thongs, rubber flip-flops. This detail would matter enormously in approximately 4 minutes. Vince's bike looked faster. It probably was faster. Newer, purpose-built, the kind of machine you buy rather than make. What Vince had that Reynaldo didn't, beyond the bike, was the 30 minutes he had spent alone with Reynaldo's machine before anyone else arrived. The loosened bolts were not many. They didn't need to be, one at the engine mount, one at the rear axle plate, subtle enough that nothing would show at idle, catastrophic enough that sustained speed and vibration would do the rest. Vince had calculated this with a precision that was, in its own way, the most intelligent thing he had ever done, and also the worst. They lined up. Someone counted down. The bikes launched. For the first 100 yards, Reynaldo was behind. His engine was better, but his start was slower, and Vince had pulled a half-length lead that he maintained with the furious concentration of someone who had invested considerably in this outcome. The crowd was loud. Mateo was louder than all of them. Then Reynaldo's engine found its range. The gap began to close, 10 yards, 5, then nothing, then he was a nose ahead, then a length. The little Briggs & Stratton singing at the top of its tuned register, everything Reynaldo had put into it coming back to him at 30 miles an hour on a Saturday morning with his brother screaming his name from the sideline. He was going to win. Everyone present could see it, including Vince. The rear axle plate went first. The vibration had been working at the loosened bolt for 90 seconds, and now it found the threshold, and the plate shifted, and the chain, which had been running true, jumped its line. Reynaldo felt it before he understood it. A sudden wrongness in the rear of the bike, a pull, the beginning of a wobble that was different from the wobble of speed. He was still going fast. His right foot was off the peg. The chain caught the thong. The thong offered no resistance. Neither did the foot inside it. What happened next took less than 2 seconds. The bike went down hard on the right side, Reynaldo with it, the asphalt meeting him at 25 miles an hour with the complete indifference that asphalt has always shown toward human plans. The bike slid. The chain, still moving, did what chains do. It took what was given to it and processed it without mercy or hesitation. Mateo was the first one to reach him. This is the detail that everyone who was there remembers. The 8-year-old in the oversized football jersey running faster than anyone else, dropping to his knees on the asphalt beside his brother. Not crying yet, just holding Reynaldo's hand in both of his and saying his name over and over. Vince was gone before the ambulance arrived. By the time Reynaldo reached our ward, the foot was, there is no gentle version of this, destroyed. The chain had done extensive damage to the soft tissue and bone of his right foot, and what remained required cleaning 3 times a day, a procedure that I watched from the adjacent bed more times than I wanted to and never once managed to watch in its entirety. The nurses were efficient and practiced and were as kind as the work allowed. Reynaldo watched every time, gripped the rails, did not look away. I don't know where he found that or what it cost him each time. The surgery was scheduled for Tuesday. A fixed point, a plan, something to aim toward. He was prepped. Gown, IV, the mandatory fast begun, nothing by mouth, the cup of water on his table becoming an object of quiet torment. The Dodger cap his father had brought from home sat beside the cup, which made the table look like an altar to everything he missed and couldn't have. They bumped him on Tuesday, higher priority. The fast reset. Wednesday arrived. He was prepped again, gown, IV, and the cup slid just out of reach again. From the corner of the ward, inevitably, bullshit had followed the whole proceedings with the focused attention of a man with strong opinions about medical administration. "This is some bullshit," he announced at full Texas volume, gripping his trapeze bar. Nobody disagreed. On Wednesday, they bumped him again. Thursday, Friday, 5 preparations, 5 IVs, 5 times the cup of water became unreachable. 5 times a nurse appeared in the doorway with that specific look, and Reynaldo closed his eyes and nodded because by the 3rd time, he already knew what the look meant. His body, trying to rebuild itself, was doing so on nothing. He was 18 and slight and had a ruined foot and no food and no water, and a family somewhere across the city who did not fully understand what was happening because he was telling them when they called that things were fine and progressing. Mateo called every day. Reynaldo told him the same thing every time: "Fine, getting better, don't worry." In the middle of the 4th night, his hand found the red button. "Necesito ayuda." Quiet first, trying not to need it. Then again, when no one came quickly enough. "Necesito ayuda." I hit my button. Robert hit his. From the corner came Bullshit, who did not so much press the button as assault it, bellowing in English so specific and forceful that it communicated the situation with complete clarity to everyone within considerable range. Every bed, every button, the red call lights going on one by one across the dark ward like something urgent and unanimous. We were a strange group to be advocating for anyone. A man was knocked out of his shoes by a car. A biker with a fractured pelvis who had grabbed a debtor by the throat at a red light paid dearly for the decision. Whatever I was, in my own bed, with my own reasons. None of us had arrived here through particularly graceful circumstances. But Reynaldo was 18, and his foot was in pieces, and he had a little brother who called every day and believed everything was fine, and none of us were willing to lie in the dark and listen to him ask for help alone. The nurses came faster when it was all of us. They always did. That is the thing about that ward that I have carried longest. Not the pain of it, not the tedium, not the particular misery of being broken and stationary in a badly lit room. What I have carried are the red lights, all of them on at once. A ward full of damaged, cantankerous, imperfect strangers who heard a good kid call out in the dark and did not hesitate. "Necesito ayuda. We heard you, amigo, every one of us, we heard you."